All right, let's dive into our body's largest and most visible organ system, the one that, literally holds us all together. I'm talking about the integumentary system. We're going to peel back the layers and really see what it's all about.
This fascination we have with what's going on beneath our skin, it's nothing new. Just look at this incredible historical illustration. It really shows you how long we've been trying to figure out our body's protective outer layer. And let me tell you, this journey of understanding the skin is just, well, it's absolutely fundamental to all of medicine.
So, the big question is, where do you even start with the largest organ in the human body? Well, for us, we're going to start our journey from the outside and work our way in, exploring all its different parts. Okay, so the system basically breaks down into two main parts. First, you've got the skin itself, and we're going to dissect that layer by layer. And then you have what are called its accessory structures. Think things like your hair, your nails, and all those different glands.
All right, let's start our journey at the very top, the most superficial layer. This is the body's frontline defense, and it's called the epidermis.
So what is the epidermis made of? It's something called stratified squamous epithelium. Now, don't let the name scare you. Just picture multiple layers of flattened cells all stacked up on top of each other. That's what creates the super important barrier against, well, everything in the outside world.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The epidermis isn't just one single solid layer. Nope. It's actually made up of several different sublayers, or strata as they're called, and each one has its own specific job to do. So if we go from the top down, you've got the stratum corneum. That's the outermost horny layer made of dead cells. Then as we go deeper, we pass through the lucidum, the granulosum, and the spinosum, all the way down to the stratum base cell. Now this bottom layer, think of it like a nursery. It's where all the new skin cells are born, and they're constantly pushing the older cells up towards the surface to eventually be shed. But wait a minute, you might be thinking, how does that top layer, that stratum corneum, actually stay stuck together? Well, those dead cells are basically glued together by lipids. And this lipid barrier does two amazing things. It locks in moisture, acting like a natural moisturizer, and it keeps all the nasty stuff out.
Okay, so we've covered the top layer. Now let's dive a little deeper. Right beneath the epidermis, we find the real working core of the skin, the dermis.
Now, unlike the epidermis, which is all neatly stacked, the dermis is made of this dense, irregular connective tissue. And that's what gives it both its strength and its flexibility. Honestly, this is where all the action happens. It is packed with nerves so you can feel things, blood vessels to bring in nutrients, and all of those accessory structures we talked about just a minute ago. If we look back at our diagram here, you can really see what I'm talking about. The dermis is literally the foundation for so many of these other structures. I mean, the root of every single hair, the sweat glands, the oil glands, they are all anchored deep inside this tough, super dynamic layer. And that brings us to our final stop on this tour of the layers. We've arrived at the deepest one, the foundation that connects our skin to everything else underneath. This is the hypodermis, or as you might have heard it called, the subcutaneous layer. So, what's the hypodermis made of? Mostly adipose tissue. Yep, that's fat. And it has some really important jobs. It acts as a shock absorber, it insulates the body to keep you warm, and it anchors the skin to all the tissues underneath, like your muscles. And wow, this slide right here perfectly illustrates what we're talking about. I mean, the diagram is great, but this is what that subcutaneous fat layer actually looks like in real life. See those yellow globular structures? That's the adipose tissue we were just discussing, the stuff that provides that crucial insulation and stores energy. Okay, that was a lot of information, I know. So let's do a quick recap. This table gives us a perfect summary. You've got the epidermis on top, no blood vessels, but it regenerates. Then the dermis has blood vessels, it's strong and it's flexible. And finally, the hypodermis, insulating, shock absorbing, and it's also vascular. So there you have it, 3 distinct layers, each with its own critical role. All right, so we've seen the what, the anatomy of the layers. Now let's get into the how, the physiology. How do all these layers actually work together? Because, believe me, the skin is so much more than just a simple covering for your body. Let's focus on 2 of the skin's most critical jobs, protection and thermoregulation. First, it's our physical shield. It protects us from basically everything: bacteria, UV rays, chemicals, physical impacts, you name it. And at the exact same time, it's acting as our body's thermostat. And get this,
The protection isn't just physical. This is actually fascinating. Our skin naturally maintains a slightly acidic pH, which is sometimes called the acid mantle. And that little bit of acidity makes the surface a really bad place for a lot of harmful bacteria to live. Plus, it's essential for creating that lipid barrier we were talking about before. So, how does this whole thermostat thing work? It's pretty cool, actually. When you get too hot, you start to sweat, right? And the blood vessels in your dermis open up, or dilate, to let heat escape. But when you're cold, the opposite happens. These tiny little muscles called erector pili contract. That's what gives you goosebumps. And those same blood vessels squeeze tight to keep all that precious heat close to your core. Okay, to start wrapping things up, let's take a quick look at those accessory structures we mentioned at the beginning. The specialized tools that actually grow out of the layers of the skin. So what are they? Well, we're talking about hair, nails, and a bunch of different glands. The most important ones to remember are the sebaceous glands, which produce oil, and of course, the sweat glands that are responsible for cooling us down. And here we are, back at our master diagram for one last look. This really ties it all together. You can see exactly where all these structures live. There's the hair shaft coming out of its follicle way down in the dermis. You can see the sebaceous gland attached right to it, and that little coiled sweat gland just waiting to do its job. It's just a beautifully integrated system, isn't it? So I want to leave you with this thought. We've just gone through the skin's incredible complexity, right? So the question to really ponder is this. How can we, as future clinicians, use the skin, its color, its texture, its overall health, as a kind of diagnostic window to figure out what's happening deeper inside the rest of the body? Definitely something to think about.